Anthony Harper, with the Intermountain Christian News, was able to introduce our investigations of UNRWA to the Senator James Risch, who at the time was the chairman of the Middle East Subcommittee, Near East Subcommittee of the Senate, and then became the head of the Foreign Relations Committee, and now is the ranking Republican. And because of that introduction, UNRWA has been forced to be open and transparent about the situation with the school books, the incitement, the indoctrination to murder. And this is something that people don't realize, the extent how one person can do so much. And when of course we heard that you were from Idaho, you saw my eyes kind of go very, very special in terms of their twinkle. The twinkle in my eye got very special because you see, it's Senator Risch who can do something and did something. And we exposed the fact that this book, which praises a terrorist, Dalal al-Mughrabi, who murdered 38 Jews, is the featured book in the UNRWA school system for the last 5 years. And our friend Senator Risch and has made an issue out of it, thanks to you, Anthony Harper, and the fact that it's an unprecedented school book where the children are being taught to murder Jews, and by an example of this woman. And you see, it's not just a matter of reforming UNRWA, it's a matter of getting rid of their education as it is right now. And states, and thanks to the interview, the intervention of Senator Risch, which I think has been influenced by Anthony Harper. Of course, 4 years ago, I was in the office of Senator Risch, in which we made a presentation about this subject, and it really worked. And that's what I can tell you. So the work of one man to push the proper legislator who, fearing for the good name of the United States and the situation of the people of Israel in the land of Israel under such a threat, education, indoctrination, these are the weapons in the hands of the other side. So a lot of credit both to Anthony Harper and to James Risch for standing up for integrity, the integrity of the God of Israel and the people of Israel and the land of Israel. And that's something that we can't forget.
Hi, I'm Idaho Senator Jim Risch, and I'm glad you asked me to visit with you today. Idahoans know that anti-Semitism has no place in society today, and we should all do everything we can to fight against any anti-Semitic rhetoric or action when we see it. Israel and the Jewish people are among the greatest friends that the United States has, and absolutely our greatest friend and ally in the Middle East. Through our more than 70-year relationship, the United States and Israel continue to forge an unbreakable bond. On the economic, diplomatic, and security fronts, we advance our cause shoulder to shoulder. But there's more we can and should do to help and fight against those who wish to harm Israel. Just last year, I introduced a resolution in the Senate that condemns the rise of anti-Semitism across the globe. In 2021, violence between Israel and Hamas led to an increase in attacks against Jewish communities. This violence was and is further fueled by support here in the United States for the BDS movement, a global Palestinian-led effort to promote boycotts, divestments, and economic sanctions against Israel. The BDS movement is dangerous and contributes to the rise of anti-Semitism. I will continue to condemn all forms of anti-Semitism in Idaho, the United States, and around the world. On that note, defending Israel at the United Nations is one of the most important jobs we have. From the UN Human Rights Council Commission of Inquiry to Agenda Item 7, Israel is unfairly singled out over and over again. We work tirelessly to ensure that our ally is not targeted and to stop U.S. taxpayer dollars from supporting anti-Israel or anti-Semitic activities at the UN. I also introduced the UNRWA Transparency and Accountability Act to make much-needed reforms to UNRWA. This important piece of legislation would require the Secretary of State to certify that UNRWA employees are not affiliated with Hamas and that all agency textbooks do not contain anti-Semitic rhetoric before any U.S. money would be allowed to be given to UNRWA. I'm disappointed that just last month President Biden provided additional funding to UNRWA without seeking reforms. I will continue pushing for reform of this deeply flawed organization. On Palestinian assistance, I continue to scrutinize every dollar to ensure compliance with the Taylor Force Act and push the Palestinian Authority to abandon the egregious pay-to-slave program. And as we continue to fight against the misappropriation and desecration of Jewish cemeteries, we must urge leaders to respect sacred Jewish heritage and allow the proper restoration of these and other holy sites. Thank you for all the work you do to defend Israel. We must continue to stand strong. Again, thank you for inviting me to address your group today. God bless you for what you're doing.
I'm Dr. Anthony Harper. You're blessed to be with Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin of Idaho. And we have the important topic, a very crucial topic to discuss regarding anti-Semitism. So I know, Lieutenant Governor, that you recently contacted the governor, Brad Little, regarding the issue of anti-Semitism. And so that was a very bold step. A congressman in New York and many in the Congress are speaking out on this issue regarding the Palestinian state or Palestine issue. But what was your comment? What were your thoughts shared with Governor Little on the matter of anti-Semitism?
Well, first of all, Dr. Harper, let me thank you for your events, for your efforts. You're always at the White House, our White House correspondent, the one that we follow and track back here in Idaho. And I appreciate you being involved and engaged in that way, and you're constantly sending me videos and messages and prayer requests, and so thank you for your effort to help keep the citizens of Idaho well informed about what's going on at our nation's capital. And on this issue, it's so critical that we, as a nation, a Christian nation, do support the nation of Israel. That's what we're called to do. And so it's so important that we do that, and it's alarming what we see happening from the current Biden administration and some members of Congress, especially as compared to the way President Trump, our 45th president, was dealing with the issue. He was very supportive of the nation of Israel, worked hard and diligently to build up the relationship with that country. He issued an executive order back in 2019 which prohibited any anti-Semitic activity on our colleges and university campuses. That is so critical that we protect the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and make sure that our government is not facilitating some of those sentiments that are causing concern to a lot of us today. So thank you for your efforts. We were contacted in my office from the American-Israeli Coalition, and they wrote a letter asking, because they were alarmed about a notification went out about a company that was participating in the boycott, divestiture sentiment, and they were alerted that there might be a company that was contracting with the state of Idaho in these activities, which last legislative session, which was earlier this year, the legislature passed a law through that prohibited the state from contracting with any of these companies. It was signed by the governor. And so when we received the letter from this coalition, we wrote a letter to the governor asking him a series of questions. Actually, there were 4 questions that we posed to the governor, and part of it is specific to the language, but there were other things that had happened in Idaho that were concerning. In December of 2020, the Anne Frank Memorial had been vandalized with swastika stickers, which left a stain on Idaho and the reputation of our state. And so the comments that were made by the mayor of Boise, the governor of the state of Idaho, that saying that this is not tolerated in our state and that the perpetrators would be held accountable. Also, we know that the Boise Police Department had surveillance cameras around the memorial. And so it's really important that when people say things, when they make comments about holding perpetrators accountable for their actions, it's important that we follow up with that. And so that was the first question that we posed to the governor, is that as the CEO of the state, did you follow up on this investigation, and were these perpetrators held accountable? The people of Idaho deserve to know what happened in this incident. On that question, we have not received a response back from the governor on that question.
Well, that he hasn't responded to my request about getting a statement on anti-Semitism. I did read the letter in response to you about this matter, about that opposing all forms of anti-Semitism, but not really being more specific. You were very good at making it more specific about what anti-Semitism is.
Yes.
And
thank you for your efforts with the governor's office, and that was also one of the other questions that we asked of the governor, is that you had made repeated efforts to reach out to his office and get a response back from his office, and that was one of our other questions, whether or not he intends to respond to your request and issue a statement against anti-Semitism. So you're telling me as of today you still have not heard back from
I haven't heard back.
the governor? Okay, well, that's unfortunate, because he needs to respond to his constituents on these important issues.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people in this state that share the belief and the sentiment that we do. In fact, the churches that I just came back from visiting up in North Idaho, we visited 8 northern counties up there, and I attended 2 church services where both the churches have on display, they have an American flag on one side, and then they have the flag of Israel on the other side with a cross in the center. So there's a lot of people in our state that share the beliefs and the sentiment that we do, that it's really important that we fight back against this movement and any anti-Semitic activity in our state.
Well, like I said, I was really pleased about more of a descriptive, statement in describing anti-Semitism. I mentioned earlier about how alarming it is that there's a lot of people that accept a Palestinian state idea, and it's great to have this New York congressman and other congresspeople that speak out to say there is no Palestine. Mm-hmm. What I've found in my research so far, and that is, it relates to the history of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, that he called this area Palestine, and it just seems like it just fuels this anti-Semitism as long as they believe that Israel's the occupier. What would you like to say about this whole issue of the Palestinian state and people denying Israel the right to all their land?
Well, there's been conflict in that part of the world since the early days. We know that. Mm-hmm. But when these people, and we go back to ancient biblical times, and we know that the people of Israel, God's chosen people, had roots in that part of the world, and then there were conflicts, but there were agreements, and when there are conflicts and there are resolutions about how to solve the conflict, then it's our responsibility to abide by those terms of agreement, and that is we know, again, going back to biblical times, the people of God were there. That was their homeland, and just because one group of people doesn't want to recognize that or recognize an agreement doesn't make it any less real.
I know this seems to be growing, and I've, in my experience at the White House, witnessed a lot of anti-Semitism amongst the media, and even in the White House, there, the conversation with Iran and all these actions are really forms of anti-Semitism. Of course, as you know, President Biden seems to be obsessed with dividing Israel right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, it's important that I am on the right side of God, and I know that He is there, and that the nation of Israel, they are God's chosen people, and He has the plan, and His will be fulfilled. His plan will be fulfilled, and it's my job is to be on the right side of God.
I think that goes along with what we've talked about before. It's that prophet Joel. It talks about God's anger towards people that divide up Israel. And this whole Palestinian state is dividing Israel. So for those of you out there that have not read Joel 3:2, it says, "For God enters into judgment in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the nations that divide up in his land." And of course, judgment is not a good thing, to have God entering into judgment against you for dividing up his land. And so hopefully more people in leadership will understand what's at risk here for Israel.
Of course, that's my hope, and it has to be all of our prayer, because that is the only resolution on this very difficult situation that we have in the world. The conflict in the Middle East can only be solved by our Father in heaven with His perfect plan.
Yes, and we sure need God's involvement with this. It's very, very troubling times. And I wanted also to comment about, it was great to have, as I mentioned, your detailed description about anti-Semitism. And for those that have been concerned about that cemetery that's been desecrated in Vilnius, Lithuania, it was great to hear you speak up about that, and hopefully the White House will as well. It's so alarming that, and for those that haven't heard about this, that Jewish cemetery in Vilnius, Lithuania, there's a website, savevilna.org, but I know we've been talking about that for quite a while. And
well, I mean, I don't know why anybody thinks that's okay, is to mess with a hallowed graveyard. You're just asking for trouble if you want to mess with that. Also important is that we still have a lot of work to be done. In fact, I think I had a conversation, a conference call just this morning with 2 individuals from this organization. There is more work to be done in the state of Idaho, where we need to have stronger definitions in our code about anti-Semitism, because without good definitions of terms, and it makes our laws more vague and hard to enforce. So we're looking at that. We're going to look at what we need to do to strengthen the definitions in our code. And then the other thing that we're looking at, that we need to look at in our state, is that even though, and the governor did respond affirmatively, that this company, Unilever, is not currently contracting with the state of Idaho to provide services according to the law. What we do not know yet, though, is whether or not any of the state, the Percy retirement program, or any of the investments of the state have money invested in that company. So that's the next step that we're going to take to find the answers to that question there. So with that, so there's still work to be done, and we'll pursue in that direction. Keep praying, and I know that God's listening to our prayers. He's opening our eyes. People are waking up to what's going on. May not like everything that we see, but that's part of the first step towards making changes. And I want to thank you for my special pin here, and for the extra one that you gave me. And I'll make sure it goes to the right home. Thank you for all that you do, Dr. Harper. Appreciate and continue to keep us posted and informed of when you're back in DC. God bless you. You're great. You provide a great service.
It's not easy to be there, as you know, right?
No.
And I want to let you know what that pin is that Lieutenant Governor is referring to is the Israeli-U.S. flag pin. Very special pin of our relationship with Israel. So thank you once again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
One of the highest moral callings is respect for the dead. For those who do not pay proper homage and treatment of those who have passed on, do not treat life with respect. We have a situation today in Vilnius where a cemetery, one of the last remnants of a glorious community, faces destruction for the construction of a convention center. There are many locations which would be suitable and fitting for that kind of an institution, not on top of a cemetery. One of the few remnants, one of the few reminders of what was once a glorious center of Jewish learning and Jewish life. Tens of thousands of people have rallied to this cause because they understand the significance. We appeal to the government of Lithuania, a democratic government, a member of NATO, a member of the EU, that subscribes to these values and to the norms that we all cherish, to today make the right decision to stop the construction of the convention center on the cemetery, to accord those people the lasting rest and peace they're entitled to. It will also be a reminder to those who perished in the Shoah and the Holocaust that there is a new era, an era of respect for the Jewish living and for the Jewish dead. So we ask that everyone join in appealing to the government of Lithuania that they will stand up at this moment and do the right thing. We know they can, we know they have. We hope they will do it now.